At least those coming from the academic community, with the Erasmus Plus mobility programs. They are quite popular in the region, mobility of students, mobility of staff. And as we all know, this is about, there are some significant changes in the implementation of the Erasmus Plus program, where digital identities are now a necessity to participate in the Erasmus Plus programs. Federated identities will become a key element, not only for accessing, not only for Erasmus Plus, but for many other services. Many other services will be only accessible through these federated identities. So I will start with Trifun. What is GEANT doing and how is GEANT supporting this?
Yeah, but I think it's a complicated topic, so I'm trying to explain for all the services that we discussed before, collaboration services and cloud services and everything, you don't want a different username and password for each one of them. You want to have just one username and password, log in, and then have access to everything. And that's the idea. So have your own federation and be able, with your username and password, access everything. Then we have a GEANT in GEANT that interconnects all these federations. So you have access here, but if you go to another country, you should be able again to access resources in that country, at least the network, a printer or data or whatever you need for your work. And GEANT has more services. We have a Jerome, which is for over, you have access to Wi-Fi hotspots in over 100 countries all over the world. So whenever you are abroad and you are close to a university or some other public institute that is connected to the NRN, you have immediately access, secure, based on the state-of-the-art security and authentication standards, access to the network. We have EduTeams, which is a service for you to work with other researchers in virtual teams, virtual organizations, so you can collaborate together and have access to some scientific data as a closed user group. And we have in academia, which is the similar like the student ID, student card. So instead of going to a shop to buy your student card and get a discount because you are a student, with the in academia service, you can prove that you are a student and get the discount online. So there are commercial companies that they offer online discounts to students. And with this service, they can, without getting any data, with some handshake, they know that you are a student, you get the discount. But now, going to your point, we have Erasmus Plus, and I think that with GEANT it was quite successful, and it helped Erasmus to become, especially now with COVID, but I think for the next framework program from 21 to 27, everything will become digital. It helped the students to have access to the applications, to go to the other countries and have access to resources or the maps or whatever they need. And there is, I think we discussed this morning, there is an extra service which is called My Academic ID, which is called the IDP of last resort. So if the institute, they don't have the resources or the infrastructure to build and work and operate the federation, they can use the service My Academic ID and provide IDs to their students that they will be able to access Erasmus Plus. And there are already 100,000, I think. Last time in summer, there were 100,000 students from over 400 institutes all over Europe that they were using this service in order to be part of Erasmus Plus and paperless Erasmus.
Thank you. One of the more successful federation is, of course, the AI EduHR Federation in Croatia. Goran, what's the history behind such a big federation, and what the current numbers, the members, the institutions, the users?
So all current academic institutions manage their own identities, and CARNET manages identities for school. The identities for schools are managed centrally in CARNET, 800,000 plus identities, and around 80,000 identities are managed by the institutions themselves. And this is the base for all our services, because as Trifon mentioned, you don't want to have one username and password for one service and another for another service. So the idea behind the AAI was first to know who you are talking to, who is connecting to a network, and second, to provide him trusted and reliable services just for him, tailor-made, so he can have access to only what he has the right to have access. That's great with the EduRoam and with Erasmus Plus Mobility, because you, in theory, you leave Zagreb, but all your data follows you, and you come to Spain, and you immediately can connect to EduRoam network. When you come to university, you didn't even enter the office to say, hello, I came from Zagreb, you know, immediately you have access to internet and to your network, and then you can sort your papers and stuff in order, you know, and this really enables mobility and makes it much easier and faster. One thing. Another thing is also access, nobody talks about it, but it's access to academic journals and scientific papers, you know, that is also, for example, in Croatia, it's under our IP range. So if you connect with AAI, you get via VPN, you get your IP, Croatian, and in Spain you can access the Oxford University Press, Springer, Wiley, EBSCO journals as if you were in Zagreb. This is also a big enabler, AAI, for that service. And as we upgraded the AAI, now it's also connected with the government ID, so we can enter all the government services with the AAI. We are going to improve that even further. So it's now tier 2 security. We are going to bring it to tier 3 security authentication, so that you can also see everything as your ID citizen data the government has from you, and the government hub data that are already there. You get access to that, to health data, to property data, you know, everything that, all the data are enabled through your ID. So that's a big motivator. I just wanted to say something else on the role of GEANT. Nobody ever mentions that, but I'm pretty fond of this GEANT facilitated task forces and special interest groups. This is these are focus groups on a specific subject, on a specific matter, and this is where you learn most. If you come from NREN, anywhere in Europe, and you want to know more about, I don't know, how to advertise your NREN, there is a task force marketing and communications, and you know, all the marketing and communication people from other NRENs are there. And you ask, I don't know, hey guys, we need to do a video and do the subtitles to advertise our NREN. Did you do something like that? And you know, in 1 hour you get like 5 emails and links and whatever. Oh, we did it like this, we use this tool, this is easier, don't go that way, you know. The same is for network, the same is for the services. These special interest groups and task forces facilitated and provided by GEANT are really a great tool, both to learn and to present and give away, you know. So I'm really fond of that, and this is something we should continue to do in the GEANT.
Thank you for emphasizing the important role of the task forces. I myself participated in several of them, and I must say that are quite useful. And the point is that they are open, actually. All of them are open for participation. Anyone can actually participate, share knowledge, and learn a lot. Fiola, what are the current plans about the digital identities in the academic community in Kosovo?
Yeah, thank you, Anastas. Actually, this is a very great question, and it is a challenge in general, not only for our CRAN, but for all NRANs, and not to mention for also all other countries, especially in Europe, in how to do the digital identity in the best way. I know that the GEANT is a very good model that can be used also for the digital identity nationwide, I believe. Just to first go, before I forget, to what Goran mentioned, I think that is very useful, and I would also invite again all the participants that are also in this room, especially universities, that they can access all the very good resources that GEANT offers. And all the universities can also contact us, and we say them to all the time that, for example, if you are interested to know more about the cloud, or if you want to know more about the cybersecurity, there is a special interest group as well as a task force that also, in my opinion, I think it is very useful. Even if you are not very expert on that field, when you go to the meetings, you learn a lot. It's like reverse engineering, because there are a lot of debates, a lot of conversations between experts that help a lot. And I think also can help us a lot in this federation issue, let's say, because actually when we started with CRAN, we also had so many meetings with Goran as well, and he always mentioned federation. So now we are stuck with this name, and we know it is very, very important. And what we are doing at this moment, to go back to the question about the services that we are already offering to the universities, we are using Azure. So we have also special tenants in Azure platform for each of the universities. So we are using all the resources that are part of the Azure, also for Active Directory and AAI and others. And in terms of having internally in Kosovo for the single sign-on, we are developing it, and it's okay. I mean, we do not see any issues, and it is just a work in progress. I'm happy that now we have also a very good expert IT team that is working on that. But in order to connect to GEANT, all of our universities with a single sign-on, it is actually a challenge that we are trying to resolve, and we are working a lot in that sense. And I'm happy that we are a part of the GEANT community, and together we will develop it. Since it is a technical part, I am also an IT enthusiastic, so I cannot wait to have it all done and up and running, as we say. And since it is also related to the schools, our next plans are to connect the schools, elementary and high schools, and the internet let alone it's not enough, and it shouldn't be enough, and it is not a good option to just let the internet to pupils. You know, you have to in a way control it or manage it. So this is another plan that we are doing, to develop this managed network, that without having this AII, this single sign-on, of course, it is not possible to do. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Viola. The digital identities are quite important for accessing not only the mobility services like Erasmus+. There are a lot of initiatives Europe-wide. There are a lot of initiatives that are also present in the region that require you to have your federation and to have your identities to access these resources. Few examples are the European Open Science Cloud or the EOSC resources, that some of them you need to access them by using your federated identity. Euro-HPC, Kosovo also wants to become a member of the Euro-HPC, like several other countries in the region and most of the European countries. Again, to access these big supercomputers, these exascale, petascale, pre-exascale systems, you will also need some kind of digital identity. So it's extremely important to work on the digital identities. Before we go any further, we wanted to, when we discussed about the format of the panel, we wanted to make it a little bit interactive, of course, and we would really like to hear from the audience. Do we have any questions, comments so far before we continue with the other topics from the audience? Feel free to ask our panelists here. We have anything from the... Yes, please, sir.
National digital identity that are being developed. We heard the Prime Minister of Kosovo this morning talking about this EID, and is it embedded? Is it natural? Is it moving that direction, or it's student e-identity?
We are mostly focusing on student, but GEANT is doing an effort, and I will let Trifun explain.
There is a gateway. So between EduGain and EIDAS and all the national identities, there is a gateway. So the student starts with the student identity, and then it's very straightforward to move to the national identity for the rest of his life.
GEANT is working on solutions to enable
There is-
gateway between these two. Of course, the effort on the federate identity started many years ago, even before the digital identities for the general society were considered very important. So that's why we have a pretty much advanced EduGAIN solutions and EduGAIN network of federation of identities Europe-wide. But given that there are more and more national digital identities being developed, a lot of work has been done also in GEANT, but also through these task forces that we mentioned on combining those two and having a combination of those two, so using one as another or vice versa. Any more questions from the audience? If not, let's. Yeah, go ahead, please, sir.
Just out of curiosity, what is the percentage in different countries of universities that are connected? They're all connected to the GEANT network, or to the NREN? Is the NREN connecting all the universities?
Goran.
Private, public?
In Croatia, 100% of universities and 100% of primary and secondary schools.
Okay, primary and secondary, also to GEANT network.
Yeah, via Carnet, via identity, they have access to, for example, EduRoam. And now we are working for on the kindergartens even and so on. That's for the future, you know.
If you search online, there is a compendium of the NRNs produced by GEANT and the project. I think it's annually still, regardless of COVID. And you can find the percentages. Not each NRN have their own policies, which users they can connect or not. So there are a couple of NRNs that are also providing access to public administration. There are NRNs that provide access to schools or to museums or to hospitals. So you can find there for each country what percentage of each category are connected to the NRNs. But usually for the universities, it's 100%. And then there is a question about private universities, but the public universities are, I think, 100% for most of the countries.
It very much depends on the NREN's policy, on the governmental policy of the NREN. The NRENs are quite different in Europe. You have a very diverse structure of the NRENs, starting from NRENs that are state-owned agencies that are 100% financed by the state, up to the other end of the spectrum where you have organizations that are 0% funded by the state and fully funded by the subscriptions from the university. We even have NRENs of this kind. And something in between always, everywhere. So it really depends on the NRENs. But again, as Trifun said, it's usually close to 100% for the higher education institution, research institute, etc. And many, many more organizations depending on the capacity of the NREN, on the policy of the NREN, on how they can manage the connectivity and the services for the users.
But I would like to emphasize one more time. The time when NRENs served only the academic communities, I believe, is gone. We were one of the first NRENs to start serve the educational community. And now, over the years, we see that all other NRENs follow and they encompass among their users, the users from the educational community. Why? One way or another. And the great example for that and how NREN can be useful was in the time of the COVID, when Europe went into the lockdown. So in March 2020, we knew that the lockdown is going to happen, you know, and the government gave us a heads up of 3 weeks and said, okay, in 3 weeks' time, we are not going public with that, but in 3 weeks' time, we are going online. And all schools and all the universities are switching to online. And our network was designed initially, as I said, for the academia. Then we had schools, but we never, you know, the services and the network are optimized not for 100% of users using the resources all the time, but are optimized for, I don't know, 20, 40, 60, but never 100. So in 3 weeks time, we had to optimize the services and the network and provide training materials and everything and instruction for schools, for headmasters, for principals, for professors, how to switch to online. So 3 weeks we were working around the clock, but these 3 weeks include also 15 years of working with schools previously and providing services for schools and everything. So in the end, the European Commission in the DESI report stated that Croatia was the most successful country in Europe in transition to online during the lockdown. But that's why, because this is the reason, because we connect schools since 2006. Some RENs are new in that. And that's the reason why when I first met Fiola 3-4 years ago, and they said, oh, we want to bring, to set up academic network. I said, academic is great. Schools are the future because most of the users come from educational community, you know, and that's, did time prove me right?
Thank you. Thank you, Goran. Any more questions in this round? Yes, please.
I would like to ask something except the education part, that is something proven, a concept that all the NRENs proven it, that is functional, it's worth it. What about other, let's say, aspects, commercial aspects? Did any state try to put NRENs on the commercial side, business and stuff like that, or not yet?
Who wants to pick up? Trifone.
I can.
From the network point of view, because I think it was said that the network works at 20%, 30%, it's not viable for the commercial operators to provide this kind of service. So you have this high quality, error-free connection service for the researchers and for the, mainly for the researchers. I wouldn't say for the education, and it's not commercial viable. So we have done trials to transfer 10 gigabits from, I don't know, from United States to Australia through the NRNs, and the traffic goes 10 gigabits at that level because there is space in the network. Well, if you try the same thing with the commercial operators, because they're trying to make profit and they're trying to over provision to put as many customers as possible, you were able to see that the traffic was cut by some commercial operator. Some of them, they thought that it was an attack, so they were trying to stop the attack. So, and that's why, I mean, still we have help from the governments, help from the European Commission. It's subsidized because it's not something commercially viable. And again, for example, you're able to use, we have an EduMeet video conference platform. You can go and use Zoom, but when you use Zoom, Zoom is taking from you a lot of data that you don't want to share with anyone. So if you want something secure, something that is made and you know it's open source and you know how it was made, and there are still some aspects that you prefer to use the NRNs for security reasons, for something to be open source, to be open science. And of course, I mean, there are many, Azure is perfect, but sometimes we have to use commercial products. Sometimes we develop our own products for good reasons, I hope.
Thank you, Goran, you want to add something?
But from our perspective, I forgot to mention that in an opening, all our services are 100% free for all our users. So CARNET activities are funded through the central state budget and through projects. and we are not allowed to generate income, not even to generate income to invest it in further research or whatever. So basically, our work is paid, and everything that we provide to the end users, that's free. And we are never going to charge them for something that we offer to them. We have only one exception. We have a national conference, and during the national conference, we go to different cities. We have now 1,200 participants on that conference, and there is a registration fee for the conference of around 100 euros, 110 euros. But the cost per participant for Carnet is more than 500 euros. So we ask them to participate to cover for their lunches and coffee breaks and so on. And that's the only service that we charge, and we have now over 70 services towards our end users and institutions.
If I can add about what Goran said, and I think also Anastas mentioned, there are a lot of different models of entrance in Europe. So for example, Carnet is an agency, and like for example Germany, DFM, it's NGO, right? So it's completely not funded by the government. So it really depends in terms of charging or not all the users. It really depends also on the business model, I think, of each of the entrants. Yeah.
I think that from the user's perspective, all the entrance services are free. It depends on who covers those expenses. Some entrants use the state money, some use the state money and projects, some ask universities for annual fees, annual subscriptions, etc. But it's important that for the end users it's free. And to pick up just a little bit on the commercial part, GEANT is also providing access to many commercial services because GEANT will provide you with the integration capabilities. You can integrate a lot of commercial services into your own services. You can have, I don't know, you can have even Zoom behind a federated login. GRNet, for example, provides Zoom services, but without using the Zoom's platform to authenticate you to everything. Everything is integrated. So if you are a user of this NREN, you have the access to this service that the GEANT procured for you, that the GEANT or the NREN procured for you. The other example are the cloud services provided within the OCRE project. It's also one of the big GEANT projects. GEANT made framework agreements with a lot of commercial providers in every country in Europe. There you have a list of providers that you can use these discounted prices that GEANT agreed with these providers for your institution. If you need to buy huge resources at some point of time and be elastic, have it now and discard it later, so you can use also. So, but GEANT and the NRENs somehow were never meant to be commercial toward the end user. That's a very important point, that serving the community is and free, it's the first.
Just to add
And
on that,
so just
what other institutions can benefit from it?
Depending-
Do you have any scenario and any good example?
Depending on the policy of the NREN. Every NREN has a different policy, as we mentioned. Some all connect only academic institutions. Some others connect educational institutions. Some other connect, I don't know, in Marnets, for example, it says that it will connect all the NGOs that are working on the, I don't know, child care or child security or child benefits community. Other NRENs have in their policy documents who are their user base, and that depends on the NREN.
I just wanted to come back to this commercial question. You know, the market doesn't have interest to do what we do. And that's why we are national agencies and institutions or organizations, whatever. Because the telecoms will never install, I don't know, optical lines towards the third school in the highest mountain. And that's not a main school, that's a regional school or, you know, the outpost of some school. There is no commercial interest for them to dig up and throw lines underground and do that. You know, we make them do it. We pay them to do that because we want that school connected, because these children from those schools also deserve equal chances and equal opportunities, because they are also, we want to, their, you know, digital empowerment goes towards them. Everything we do for that, you know. So this doesn't have commercial logic behind it. You cannot quantize it. We need that school connected, whatever it costs.
Yes, please.
Question, or do you, or what's the strategy to know that connectivity per se is not the objective? Connectivity is a mean to enhance education. Do we know the type of data they're using? Different question. I'm working for the European Commission on the GEANT program in Northern Africa. We're just signing a huge 20 years connectivity to provide connectivity for the next 20 years in Northern Africa. A question we have at the European Commission is that, is this connectivity going to be used in a way that enhance policy objective that we share with the government? Do you work on this? Do you think how, in particular in Croatia, if everything is connected, you reach the connectivity objective? This is clear.
I have two words for you, and it's called content filtering. So we know all the traffic that goes through the network, and we are doing the content filtering of the traffic. So the ministry gave us categories of traffic that are not allowed over the network. So if you are a child in a school, wherever in Croatia, and you connect to wireless to Eduroam, you cannot get to sex, violence, pornography, child abuse, gambling, drug trafficking, and so on. These categories of traffic, of websites, are filtered and blocked. You don't have access to that. And that's why that doesn't limit them much, because they still have, YouTube and Google. But we know what is going on through the traffic. Yesterday I was in Prizren. I saw the impressive knock of Kren. We have the same. We monitor traffic towards each school. We determine do they need a bigger bandwidth, or the bandwidth is enough for them. But with this corona thing, all the training resources became digital. Digital educational material, educational content is online, and they are accessing it in schools, privately, and so on. But as I said, some categories of traffic are forbidden over our network, and that's the content filtering part.
And also, the structure of the GEANT network is structured in such a way that the traffic between the members of GEANT is always the one that is favorable. We need the traffic. GEANT, of course, GEANT connectivity. I always tend to say, especially here, having my hat as the Southeast European coordinator for the emerging NREN, to the people here, or the people especially now in Bosnia, which is the ones left. GEANT is not connectivity. Connectivity is the most insignificant part, I would say, from GEANT. You can get connectivity from any operator. Now it's the global market. You have all the global players here, even in the region. You have the global players offering you connectivity at a very low rate. But GEANT is not the connectivity part. GEANT is the community. GEANT are the services. GEANT is the network between the institutions. So you can, as Trifun mentioned, you can transfer really big research data from one institution to another, from CERN to an institution in Germany to be processed, to a supercomputer in Finland, in Kajani, the famous Lumi that was just inaugurated. You can transfer this data with a very high capacity, through the very high capacity links securely, and get it there in time for your processing, and get the results and everything. But because this traffic is the most important traffic in the GEANT network, the traffic between the institutions. Of course, GEANT offers you a gateway to the commercial internet. It does not mean that you have connected to GEANT, you cannot access Google. You can, but that's just appearing. That's just a gateway to the outside world. The main benefit is the network between the institutions, and this fertilizes the collaboration. You don't have any other means to transfer terabytes of data in such a small amount of time between institutions, between HPC centers in Europe, between data stores, data lakes, or whatever they called now. So if you don't have this dedicated network specially designed for these purposes. Also, GEANT offers a lot of tools for monitoring of the network. That's very important. A lot of effort is put on the monitoring on the network, various aspects of the network, starting from the access networks, the Wi-Fi monitoring, toward the monitoring of the core network, the traffic monitoring. All of these systems are connected. These systems are also part of the systems for securing the network, for the firewalls on demand, etc. So security is also important. We didn't mention very interesting service that GEANT offers, that is the EduVPN service. So you have a virtual private network service offered to the academics, again, using the same educational ID they do have. If they are somewhere connected to a public network, they can trust in their EduVPN to get a secure access to the academic network, so they don't worry that someone is eavesdropping on them. So the whole story around it is more important than the actual connectivity.
But I have a question for you. Show me one school or one university whose traffic, when you look at the traffic structure, has more educational traffic than the commodity internet traffic. Show me one. I don't know for such example.
From a policy which is
It is my belief that network cannot make the difference. The only ones who can make the difference are the skills trainers. So the professors that teach the children and educate them which sources to use and which materials to use.
Yeah.
So if they push them in that direction, towards that traffic, that data, that repositories and whatever, they will use this. If they tell them go to Wikipedia and watch it on YouTube, then again it's not the end user, the student's, pupil's fault, it's the trainer's fault. So that's why we put a lot of effort in training the trainers and educating the trainers, because they are the backbone and they formulate what their users, and they are, you know who the users are in the classrooms, what they are going to use.
That would be the same if you say that you put a very nice highway to a further part of the country and you don't build a factory there, or you don't have a port there, or you don't have content to do so. So it is the content, and most importantly, it's the people. It's the people that will educate on how this technology should be used. Joel, you want to add something?
No, actually, I wanted to say what you said. So yeah, but I think without connectivity, nothing can be done. So better to start and do that. But at the same time, I think the policies need to be focused is to work hand in hand in two directions. Not only to develop infrastructure, but at the same time also to develop platforms that are going to be used for education, for example. So in that way, also the teachers, as Goran is saying, not only to train them, but also to give them the means of how to use connectivity for their day-to-day teaching.
And there is another whole area that raises another issues is which devices are you going to allow them to connect at their institutions? Are these only official devices who are installed by the official staff of the university and that have firewalls and antivirus protection on it? Or are you going to allow them to bring their own device beyond? You know, the traffic comes from the device and from the user, not only from the user. You know, so it's always argument. Should we allow them to bring their own devices? Should we encourage them to bring their own device? Should we forbid them to bring their own devices? Like in schools, you have schools where mobile phones are forbidden and they are not allowed to bring mobile phones on the classes. And you have schools where they are encouraged to use mobile phones and search for other resources online and whatever. You know, it's a policy issue. It's not. I don't believe this is a networking issue. The way you ask the question.
I want to disagree with Goran because, I mean, it could be a project by the Commission, it could be a service contract, but you need the network. You cannot do without the network. And then I agree that digital skills is important. I don't have a problem if you watch a Netflix movie and maybe some student will invent the new Netflix in Europe instead paying the States. So I think it's part of the innovation process to use the network in any way, but the network should be there. And then if we want EuroHPC, want quantum, we want time and frequency, all these acronyms and open science and EOS, we need a terabit network. And of course, we have the European gateways and we need to connect. We have the Bella project, so we have now a direct cable from Europe to South America. We don't have to go through the States. And we need to connect with the other continents and support science. And if Netflix is the consequence of that, let it be.
CPR frameworks from the user's point of perspective, but these data are mostly research data. For example, the CERN accelerator generates terabytes of data for a single experiment, and these are some kind of numbers. By secure, we mean that this network is an isolated network from the commercial network, isolated traffic from the commercial network, which guarantees that this data will safely arrive where needed to be. This is even extended with the service I mentioned. It's extended all the way to the user. So it's not only between the data centers where you can transfer the data from your store to the HPC center, but within the services that GEANT offers, the EduVPN service is extended even to you as a user. You as a user can transfer securely data through a virtual private network from your own device to your own academic network. And then the academic network is an isolated network from the other part of the commercial network that Goran mentioned, the commodity internet and the academic network.
In the past, GEANT had it was called Autobahn. Is it still alive? No, but basically the idea of Autobahn was automated bandwidth on demand. So for example, a research institute in Pristina does some experiment and then they get a lot of data and then they need to have the data process. You could get at that time, I don't know how it works today.
There are similar solutions
Yeah,
today.
so basically you announce I'm going to transfer 5 terabytes of data to CERN and you get dedicated routers, VPN traffic that goes to CERN. CERN processes it, gives you back. Again, by dedicated route, you can bet it's 100% sure.
So currently only 2 or 3 countries from the Western Balkan countries are members of the HPC. To become a member of the HPC, you have to have a national commitment. So it's you have to have the state, the country, announces its will to become part of the Euro-HPC joint undertaking and nominates state representatives. And then when you become part of the Euro-HPC, you will get a seat at the governance board and you become part of this big family where you can participate in the Euro-HPC finance projects, because the European Commission channels some of the funds for the HPC toward the Euro-HPC joint undertaking to fund projects. Also, Euro-HPC participates from 35 up to 50% in purchases of petascale and pre-exascale systems. There are several in an extended regions of Southeast Europe. There is one in Slovenia, there is one in Italy here in the region, I think one in Hungary, there will be very soon one in Greece, etc., along with the others in Spain, Finland, Germany, etc. So to become part of the Euro-HPC, it's usually good to have an institution that has a strong knowledge and background in the infrastructures or high-performance computing to be carrying on all the tasks. There are examples in countries, in many countries, where the NRENs are actually the key institutions that are parts or that are the focal point for the HPC, or as they call it in the HPC community, Euro HPC community, the Euro HPC competence centers. For example, in Greece, GEANT is coordinating the effort, or their competence center. In Italy, GAR is the association that is at the same time the network. In Finland, CSC, the NREN is actually, again, the same organization that facilitates the HPC. So an NREN can be a really good candidate to become the key institution, the pillar around which we will build you build the HPC society in the country.
I just wanted to mention, today I received the question, do we have a supercomputer in Carnet, in Zagreb? And I said no, and I didn't feel bad about it, you know, because I know that in Maribor, like 80 kilometers from Zagreb, there is a supercomputer. And if any of our users want to use it, there will be a means that he can use it. Yeah. So there is no need for us to build one, because if you have access to one, that's equal as if we have one, you know. And we don't have to deal maintaining it, serving it, powering it, whatever, you know. So it's the scale of usage.
That's the policy of the European Commission also.
I don't have it and I feel good about it, you know.
Many countries participated in, with their own funds in the procurement of other countries' systems. For example, the big system that we mentioned in Finland, in Lumi in Finland. There are 5 or 6 countries that have participated in this system. The future system that will be built in Greece also has participation from several regional countries. My country, including North Macedonia, also participates in this system to some in-kind support effort. So the idea is not for every country to have one, for every institution to have one. We need to have the network. We need to have a secure way of accessing. We need to have identities. We need to have means to access this. And we need to have, most important of all, for HPC, most important of all, we need to have skillful people. We need to raise the awareness. We need to educate a lot the users to use. This region is specific for that. Not having access to technologies like HPC or other advanced technologies somehow taught the researchers to think without these technologies. Try to focus on more theoretical science, or try to focus on more strictly laboratory experiment, etc., neglecting a little bit the computational aspects. And we know now that all the sciences are turning toward computational chemistry, bioinformatics, etc., etc. So it's very important to educate the staff, to give them the opportunities, but also to raise the awareness, but also to educate them, to give them the skills to use these systems. It's not easy to use a supercomputer system if you are a computational chemist that never worked on a Linux system, for example. It can be quite a challenge. So the idea is to, from one side, to make it easier to use, but also to educate the users of the possibilities of these systems. That's how we get high percentage of usage of these high-performance resources.
Can you imagine the amount of data that we will have the moment before and the moment immediately after we plug in the ITER in France? Now the data that is produced by CERN is huge. Can you imagine what is going to happen before they plug in the ITER and the fusion reactor?
And the European light infrastructure, ELI, and all these big ERICs generate huge amounts of data.
I think the most important question, as you said, and I have outlined before some of the things and what also Goran said. So now we are working in parallel in advancing the services, the portfolio of services that we will offer to the academic community. But at the same time, we are working also with the Ministry of Education in how to connect primary and secondary school and how to do this managed network. So this is one of the most important topics that we are doing. Of course, on top is the portfolio of services that we already have, because also Azure is providing a lot of services. We actually started already with providing services to our user community. But again, as more we are going with the data center, and as more and more we are exploring also the cloud, but also other services, we are seeing that we can do more. But the single sign-on, the federation, of course, these are more hot than other topics. And of course, I mean, we are very happy that we are connected to GEANT through point of presence of in Zagreb, but we would be even more happy if we will have a point of presence of our own. So to be a pop in Kosovo or close by. I know that there are a lot of plans through GEANT projects. That have also very good plans in increasing network capacity for the region as well. And we will try to advocate as much as we can to have also Kosovo in the map there.
Thank you, Viola. In 1 minute, Goran, where will CARNET be in 5 years?
I have no idea because we are. I mean, the technology changes daily. You know, like it was 3G, 4G, now 5G, now 6G. You know, we will need the lines themselves. Are we going to be a networking company? Do we need a network department? Yeah, if the 6G provides speeds that cannot go through lines, you know, I have no idea. That's one thing. Then, second thing that we are working on, we know at some point what's in front of us. You know, that's quantum for sure, and many academic networks are going into that direction. Then another thing for us is AI. And the implementation of AI in both in learning and teaching, but also in the data analysis, because we have a huge databases, data lakes, and whatever. You know, you have to make use of those data, and we see the AI as a good tool for that. We want to empower vocational training and the processes of vocational training. We feel that they are neglected, and we want to put more emphasis on that in the future. You know. We will either expand more or shrink. I have no idea what's going to happen. You know? Really.
Thank you. Trifone, how old? Thank you. Just as a curiosity, the Lumi Computing uses 10 months a year cooling without any spending electricity. So water cooling from the cold lakes in Finland. So only for the 2 months, the rest 2 months, they use power generated from a nearby photovoltaics. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, please.
You asked for what future brings for CARNET, but we have to ask ourselves what future brings for NRENS, but jointly for NRENS. You know, I would like to see a future when NRENS collaborate more with each other and with GEANT on the services they need for the communities they serve. For example, you know that both you and I were involved in a proposal to have GEANT involved into construction of a Moodle that would serve the needs of our communities here in the region. Actually, exactly here in the Western Balkans. So this initiative was not recognized by GEANT. And again, today we have a situation. CARNET is building its own Moodle. You are having your Moodle. CREN is installing their own Moodle. GRNet is having the Moodle for Greece, you know. And we are all spending money on the same Moodle. It's the same program beneath, you know. It's just the appearance on the front that we have different, you know. So that's one thing. Besides Moodle, we have other services that we can do jointly, for sure. From joint procurement of, I mentioned before, scientific journals and papers, you know. Every country procures them for themselves. Like in the OCRE, you know, one problem is solved. There are many other problems, not problems, but challenges that are not tangled by the joint work, you know. Besides network, you know, that we always talk about, how did you do this, how did you do that, which access points are you using there, why these, why not those, you know. We exchange these ideas, and that's great. But common services, we have very few of them.
Yeah, you're right.
And repositories. Every institution is either building its own repository, or a country is trying to build a repository. CERN had a repository that doesn't exist anymore. I think the way together was made together with GEANT, you know. And now we have all these educational training materials, whatever, everybody is storing that themselves. Can't we not agree on a structure that's going to be customized? You take and pick what you want and just implement it as an interface in your country, and the backside is the same, joint. I think there is the future for the NRENs, and the way the NRENs are going to collaborate is what is the big question here.
I hope that the collaboration will pick up and continue strong, and GEANT, of course, be here to support the collaboration. Thank you all for being here. We will leave you with a video that it's a little bit longer, but I recommend that all of you watch it. It's our
Hello
colleague.
everyone. Hi, I'm Marina De Giorgi, and together with Anastas, we are the regional coordinator for the Southeast Europe at GEANT. We support the NREN in the region, and you will hear more about it in the presentation I'm sending you. I'm very sorry for not being able to be in Pristina today, but I hope to see you all in June in Tirana. Stay tuned to know more about this. I wish you a great session and plenty of questions to the chair, the dear panelists, and enjoy. Bye. This is a summary of my presentation today, a very straightforward index to keep in mind, the why, what, and how GEANT and NRENs enable digital excellence in the research and education and support the community to excel. But first, let me specify what an NREN is. The internet and connectivity are vital for science, for education, and for innovation. So how these are organized? For over 20 years, across Europe, NRENs have been initiated by a small to large community of IT experts and scientists. The main feature of these people is that they are trusted,